Have you ever noticed how some people plan everything years ahead, saving money, setting long term goals, while others focus more on enjoying every small success? This difference does not come from personality, it often comes from culture. Hello everyone, my name is Nadia Fitri and today I'm going to talk about one fascinating cultural difference called long-term versus short-term orientation based on Hofstede cultural dimension theory. This theory helps us understand how people on different cultures think about time, success, and the future. Let's start with a basic idea. Long-term orientation means a culture values planning, persistence, and a future reward. People believe success comes from passion, hard work, and saving for tomorrow. But the short-term orientation, on the other hand, focuses on tradition, quick result, and enjoying the present moment. People in the short-term culture just want to see their progress now, not 10 years later. And Hofstede explained that no culture is better than another. They're just different ways of thinking about time. We can clearly see the difference between Eastern and Western when it comes to how they think about time, success, and the future. In East Asian countries such as China, Japan, South Korea, people generally have a long-term orientation. This means they believe that success comes from passion, persistence, and a careful planning. Let's take an example in education world. Parents in Japan, China, or Korea strongly encourage their children to study diligently from a very young age. This education is a long-term investment, something that will bring benefits many years later. Students often take extra classes, attend after-school programs, and prepare for university entrance far in advance. Even socially, long-term cultures value self-discipline and saving for the future. People are willing to sacrifice comfort today for a better tomorrow. For example, they spend saving money is more common than spending it quickly. So now let's compare to the Western cultures, especially in the United States. American people tend to have a short-term orientation, which means they prefer quick results, fast decision, and visible progress. They often believe that time is limited, so it should be used efficiently. The mindset is, if something works now, use it. Don't wait too long. For example, in a people's career choices, many Americans change jobs frequently because they want faster promotions, higher salaries, or more exciting challenges and experience. They see career progress as something that should happen now, not decades later. And also in a daily life, short-term orientation is also very visible. The culture of fast food, quick service, and instant communication reflects the value of speed and efficiency. Well, American likes things that save time, like drive-through coffee and then one-click online shopping, the same-day delivery. Even phrases like "time is money," "don't waste time," show how deeply this short-term thinking is rooted in their culture. Well, on the other hand, people in a long-term consciousness may see this as a vast or impatient, but they might prefer to think carefully and take time before making big decisions. So overall, Eastern cultures like Japan or China tend to look far into the future, while Western cultures like the US tend to focus more in the present moment. Both perspectives have their strength. The long-term mindset brings stability and endurance, while the short-term mindset brings innovation and quick adaptability. So, where does Indonesia fit in? Indonesia is somewhere in the middle, but it leans slightly toward long-term orientation, especially in traditional values. Indonesian people value patience, family harmony, and saving for the future. For example, parents work hard to give their children a better education even if it takes years. However, modern Indonesian society is also showed short-term habits such as wanting fast promotions or focusing on quick economic results. Well, this mix of old and new values make Indonesia an interesting example of cultural transition. According to the Hofstede cultural dimension theory, every culture has its own level of a long-term or a short-term orientation. and this deeply influences how people make decisions in everyday life. Hasfit explained that this cultural value affects many areas of life, including education and a social relationship. Let's look at some example. So, in a long-term oriented cultures, education is seen as a long-term investment for the future. For instance, like Chinese or Korean parents often encourage their children to study hard for years to achieve success later in life. Meanwhile, in a short-term cultures such as the US, education is more practical and immediate. Students are encouraged to choose subjects that give them quick career opportunities or skills that they can use right away. And in Indonesia, we often value both. We respect formal education and long-term goals, but some students also prefer quick training programs or instant job readiness. Understanding these differences is very important, especially for us as an English department students. When we communicate across cultures, knowing people's time orientation helps us avoid misunderstandings. For example, a Western person might think Indonesian is too slow or not serious, while the Indonesian might think the Westerners is too vast or impatient. Well, in reality, both are just following their cultural values about time. In conclusion, the concept of long-term versus short-term orientation reminds us that cultures view time success in different ways. Long-term oriented societies like those in East Asia teach us the importance of patience, persistence, and planning for the future. And short-term oriented cultures like the United States show us the value of efficiency, actions, and enjoying the present moment. Indonesia stands beautifully in between, balancing both passions and flexibility, tradition and progress. This balance helps us to adapt to the modern world while still holding on to our cultural roots. So, we've learned that understanding cultural perspective is not only about knowing how others live, but also reflecting on how we live ourselves. So, let me end with this thought. Are we living only for today, or are we preparing for tomorrow? Because in the end, the way we answer that question says a lot about the culture we come from and the future we are creating. Thank you so much for listening.